Hi there, this is Travis Shaw, Director of Education for the Virginia Piedmont Heritage Area. I'm out in the field today with our Public Programs Coordinator, Ann McDougall, and today we are celebrating a very important historical anniversary. October 19th marks the 240th anniversary of the French and American victory over the British at the Siege of Yorktown, the famous world turned upside down. An incredibly important turning point in history. This is the end of major hostilities in North America during the War for Independence. It's kind of the start of the de facto recognition of American independence. And to tell us a little bit more about that, Ian's going to fill us in on the campaign that leads up to the Battle of Yorktown. And then I'm going to take a look at some of the local connections that we have right here in the Northern Virginia Piedmont. So Ian, what is the strategic situation in 1781 that's going to lead to the siege at Yorktown?
All right, so when we talk about the siege of Yorktown, what we're really talking about is the end of almost 10 months of fighting, campaigning, and maneuvering throughout the coastal region of Virginia as far as the Blue Ridge Mountains, closer here to the Piedmont Heritage Area. And in December of 1780, we have Benedict Arnold, the recent turncoat and now Brigadier General in the British Army. One of his first major commands is going to be leading a little over 2,000 British, American Loyalist, and German soldiers from the British headquarters in New York down here in Virginia to kind of disrupt communications, attack trade and ammunition depots, supply depots, and really just kind of disrupt Virginia communications in our...
Yeah, because at this point, Virginia has largely been untouched by the war, right? You know, we've been sending men and supplies and livestock and food out to, you know, up north or to Washington's army in Pennsylvania, New York, down to the Carolinas.
Absolutely correct. Areas like Loudoun County and Fauquier that are providing lots of food to places like Richmond, where we're shipping food down to the Southern Army, shipping food to the Northern armies. Virginia is a real crucial post here in the kind of the center of the 13 colonies. And so that makes Virginia a ripe target for attack there in 1781. And kind of going further into that, Virginia has largely been destabilized, by the events preceding it in 1780. Almost the entirety of the Virginia Continental Line was captured at the Siege of Charleston in May of 1780, which means there isn't a whole lot of defense here in Virginia to stop the British from kind of coming in and taking whatever they want. So Benedict Arnold and this force of British troops arrives in the Chesapeake Bay in January of 1781. Their target, of course, is the New Virginia capital, which has just moved to Richmond in the spring of 1780. And their objective is to destroy those communications, maybe capture some of our members of government, maybe Governor Jefferson and some of these other very important people and officers in the Virginia military system. And so there early in January, they sweep right up the James River, attacking the capital at Richmond, burning most of our supply houses, military depots. Virginia soldiers are literally throwing their guns and their ammunition into the James River as they flock out of the city of Richmond, moving west to set up new positions and hopefully restore the Virginia government there. And for the next several months, what we're going to see into the spring of 1781 is the British set up command posts in the city of Portsmouth, Virginia. They're going to establish more of a permanent position there. They're going to be reinforced in March of 1781 by Major General William Phillips and another 2,000 British soldiers. And they're going to begin again in a campaign up the James River, attacking places like Williamsburg, Yorktown, Jamestown, Hampton, attacking military posts.
Yeah,
all
destroying
up
the
and down.
Virginia State Navy at Osborne's Landing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're going to be very active in burning a lot of tobacco warehouses, kind of destroying the economic infrastructure of Virginia, Virginia's ability to support, again, those troops that are in the field elsewhere.
Absolutely, and they're really going to do this largely unopposed. Now, in the spring, General Washington, who is up in New York, his army and the Continental Army are really kind of facing off in kind of this
it's a
stalemate
Yeah.
between themselves and the British Army led by General Clinton in New York City. And so Washington sends down the young General Lafayette, the Marquis de Lafayette, and he and General Mad Anthony Wayne are going to be leading soldiers to kind of shadow the British Army as they operate here in Virginia. Not engaging in any big battles, but there will be several fights at places like Spencer's Ordinary, and then
Point of Fork. There's
several other places here
small
in Virginia.
skirmishes back and forth.
And
I'm glad you mentioned Anthony Wayne, because when he's sent to reinforce Lafayette, he's going to march right through our area. He's going to march down the Old Carolina Road, what is now known as Route 15. They're going to cross the Potomac River at Nolan's Ferry, on the northern end of Loudoun County, march through Leesburg, down through Loudoun County, down through Prince William County. So right through this area, although none of these battles are occurring in the Piedmont Heritage Area, these troop movements certainly are.
Absolutely. And in May of 1781, General Cornwallis, coming in from North Carolina, is going to join this force under General William Phillips and Arnold, making an army of a little over 7,000 soldiers. And from there, they're going to begin to maneuver closer to the coast again, leaving from Petersburg, where they were stationed there in May, down closer to the Williamsburg, Yorktown, Jamestown area. And from there, they're going to decide to establish a post at Yorktown. There's an idea that the French Navy, which is in the West Indies, is going to be sailing up to attack New York City. They have a little bit of information saying that the French Navy may be coming north. And meanwhile, in New York, Generals Washington and the Comte de Rochambeau are deciding what they want to actually do with that French Navy. Washington wants to attack New York City, finally rid that city of the British Army and the Central Command. Rochambeau knows that's going to be a very violent, very bloody affair, and decides we should probably cut off that British Army in the south in Virginia. And so he convinces Washington that French Navy will actually sail into the Chesapeake Bay, surrounding the British and preventing them from escaping that Chesapeake Bay. And from there, Washington's army of a little over 18,000 French and American troops will begin their way south to surround the British at the city of Yorktown. And beginning on September 28th, they will engage in a siege. Lots of cannons, mortars, howitzers, big pieces of artillery, pounding the British lines for a little over 2 weeks. The British suffering heavy losses. They're now suffering heavily from smallpox. The army really can't go anywhere. And eventually they decide to surrender. They are forced into capitulation. And from there, over the next 2 weeks, those British prisoners are going to be marched in through the Heritage Area, through the Ashby's Gap, on their way to prisoner of war camps in Winchester, the other section of them ending up in places like Frederick, Maryland.
Yeah, they're going to, again, crossing at Nolan's Ferry. So again, we have all these massive troop movements, this time of prisoners, coming through this area, which is actually a really great segue into some of the local connections that we have to the Yorktown campaign. Now, of course, men and women from across the Heritage Area are going to contribute to the American cause throughout the war. As we said earlier, one of the biggest contributions is going to be in terms of supplies, livestock, food, horses for the cavalry and the artillery are all going to be funneled from this area. This is like the breadbasket of Virginia at the time. So from Loudoun County, Fauquier County, Prince William County are going to end up going to the Army. If you go through the records of the Virginia public claims, which you can do at places like the Thomas Balch Library in Leesburg, you can see exactly what people are giving to the Army to help keep that Army in the field. Now, of course, this area is also going to raise a number of soldiers for military service as well. And that's going to come in two very different forms. There are going to be men who serve in the Continental Army. This is the regular army of the Continental Congress. So these are soldiers that are going to enlist for long terms of service for regular pay, or at least regular-ish pay.
When it happens.
When it happens. They're going to serve, again, as a regular standing army. And when we talk about Continentals in this area, we're largely talking about the 3rd Virginia Regiment, which is going to come from Prince William, Fauquier, and southern Loudoun counties largely. The 5th Virginia is going to recruit heavily out of northern Loudoun County. We have men from this area serving in the 6th and 11th Virginias as well. So these, again, are men who are going to serve as Washington's regular forces. And then we also have men serving in the militia. Now, the militia in 18th century Virginia is a compulsory service. If you're a free man above a certain age, you are bound by the law to serve. And typically what militia service is going to entail is, a few weeks or a few months of service whenever your number is essentially called up. So early on in the war, men from the Loudoun militia, the Fauquier militia, are going to be sent down to southern Virginia to face off against Virginia's royal governor, Lord Dunmore, in 1775 and 76. Later on during the war, though, as those numbers of men in continental ranks starts to thin, Virginia is going to begin drafting men out of the militia for much, much longer terms of service, sometimes 3 months, sometimes 6 months, sometimes even longer. There's a really great story of a militia company from right here in northern Loudoun County that is given a choice. They're offered either 12 months, 12 or 18 months, I think 18 months. 18 months of service with the Continental Army, being sent south to serve alongside Lafayette around Yorktown, or 6 months of service out on the frontier fighting against the Native Americans up in the Ohio country. And they actually choose 6 months of service out of Fort Pitt, what is now Pittsburgh. Probably a pretty interesting choice to face there, but they hardly see a shot fired in anger, so maybe
really,
they chose wisely. I don't know.
Really goes to show what the public perception is of the Continental Army by this point. Everyone is hungry, many of them don't have shoes, they don't have clothing, and no one really wants to serve in that army at that point.
Right. I mean, one of the things I think we tend to forget is by 1780-81, there has not been this decisive blow, and so support for the war is very much waning. Again, Virginians are resentful of this draft that's occurring. Virginians are resentful of their food and livestock being taken for the army. Virginia implements an 80% tax on real estate to help support the army. Much, much heavier of a tax than any tax the British had ever levied. So that's what I love about this military campaign that Ian was talking about, is this is really an incredible turning point where you go from really the lowest point of support for the war in the beginning of 1781 all of a sudden to the greatest military victory by the end of the year. So let's talk about some of the locals here. We're standing in the Catoctin Baptist Church yard just outside of Purcellville, Virginia. A great place to talk about the Revolutionary contributions because this is a site tied to a number of notable individuals. The church itself was founded in the 1750s, and the Reverend Marks, who is preaching here in the 1770s, is a die-hard revolutionary. He's going to be preaching political revolution from the pulpit of this church, and he is going to put his money essentially where his mouth is, because all of his sons, he's going to have several sons who will take up arms in the revolutionary cause. And if we're going to step over to this beautiful monument that was recently put up, give you guys a good look at this. Just a number of the patriots from this community that served, and you'll see Private Abel Marks, Captain Isaiah Marks, Ensign John Marks. These are all members of that same Marks family who are going to serve. Again, several of them in the Continental Army, including Isaiah Marks, who's going to be an officer in the 6th and 11th Virginia regiments, but also a number of these men serving in the local militia as well. And we know Isaiah Marks is likely at the Battle of Yorktown. At that point, he's serving as an officer in the reformed 2nd Virginia Regiment, not to be confused with the one captured
at Charleston, in May of 1780.
And we found at least one of these other guys is probably there as well. A lot of the Virginia militia from the northern Piedmont area, Fauquier and Loudoun counties, are going to be called out for the Yorktown campaign. They are going to march south. Some of them take part in some of the skirmishing around Yorktown. The vast majority of them, however, will not arrive until after the siege is over.
And many of them are actually going to be responsible for marching some of these prisoners in and around the area of Ashby's Gap as they're sent to these prisoner of war camps in Winchester. So
Yeah.
a lot of these local militias are really going to be providing more logistical roles rather than any kind of combat role at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the local militias from this area don't see a ton of combat, but they are going to be very important, as you said, guarding prisoners, escorting these prisoners from Yorktown northward. So, an incredibly beautiful monument here at the Catoctin Church. If you haven't been out here, it's a wonderful site located just west of Purcellville, Virginia. The church building itself, which you can see behind us, does not date to the Revolutionary period. It was constructed in the 1850s. But this church and this community does have incredibly deep roots spanning all the way back to the American Revolutionary War. So if you'd like to learn more, we encourage you to kind of come out, tour these sites. We do have a Revolutionary Loudon tour that is included on our website. If you go and look under driving tours, you can find more information. This is one of the stops on that tour. It will also take you to a number of stops visited by the Marquis de Lafayette and other Revolutionary troops as they crisscrossed our area. So Ian, thank you so much for giving us the lowdown on the Yorktown campaign. We will catch up with you guys again soon because we have some other big historical anniversaries coming up this week. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks. See you next time.